Directors are drowning in data, in different spreadsheets, dashboards, reports that all tell different versions of the truth. Leaders are forced to guess instead of act, and everyone is reading off a different version of the truth. I've spent the last few years fixing these exact problems, but to explain how and why, I need to go back to the very beginning. I'm from a small place in Ireland called Limerick City. It's Ireland's third biggest city. It has around 100,000 people. I grew up in the very city centre, living on the River Shannon. I went to the local school. Ard Scoil Arís is the name of it. My mother was a nurse. My dad ran a petrol station in Watchhouse Cross in Limerick City. There wasn't necessarily a lot of computer science in my life. There wasn't really a lot of technology focus. Ard Scoil Arís itself wouldn't have had a computer science program. Maybe a computer lab and one class, 1 year, but there was never any focus on it. We played a lot of sports growing up in Limerick in general and Ard Scoil. Ard Scoil was a big sporting school, rugby, hurling, and I would have played football as well outside of that. It was a big sports focus in my early years. That's pretty much everything that we did, apart from going to work here and there as well. I would have played everything that was going at that time, rugby, hurling, soccer, until I started working in my kind of mid-teen years. My very first exposure to any sort of business would have been when I was around 15 years old. We had an old set of clippers in my mother's house, and I would have started cutting my friend's hair just as a bit of a joke, really, to begin. Eventually, word got out. I started getting a bit of requests for people to come to my house so that I could cut their hair for them. After a couple of months, I ended up enrolling in a course in a local barber shop just across the road from my house in Limerick City. I think I spent my confirmation money at the time on the course, ended up doing quite well, completing the course in 6 months, got offered to be a trainee barber there, and I used to have a couple of clients that come to my house on a Thursday and Friday after school as well. So as you can imagine, Monday to Friday in school, work Thursday, Friday evening, then work all day from 9 till 6 on a Saturday in the barber shop as well. Sunday off, and then begin everything again on the Monday. Once I finished school, I went and did a business degree in GMIT, the Galway Mayo Institute of Technology, now the Atlantic Technological University. Studied business there. I would have worked a lot of different jobs during my time in college. I worked in medical device manufacturing, I worked in hospitality industry, worked in different retail stores, just anything to kind of keep you going while you're in college, earn a bit of money while you're studying. Once I had finished my studies in GMIT, I returned to Limerick City. I would have worked with my dad. He had the petrol station in Watchhouse Cross, and he now had an off license as well in John Square in the very city centre in the heart of Limerick. The off license to John Square was an interesting place. It was very, very busy, a bit unpredictable at times. We actually had a magnet on the door so that we could control when things became a little bit more unpredictable. But it was a great learning experience, and that was my first exposure to how difficult it can be to actually run a small business and how difficult it can be to manage stock or manage different systems and data. I used to actually stand behind the counter in John Square in the off license, and between customers we'd be trying to sort out the ordering for the stock. We'd be going into different systems, exporting reports, trying to see what was going to sell, what the best margin products were, how much room we had in the stock room. Obviously you can imagine it was a small space in the city centre of Limerick. So that was my first exposure to the kind of chaos that you can have in the back end of a business. You're trying to keep everything running, you're trying to do the actual jobs that keep the money coming in and keep the stock there and focus on margins and making the actual business run, making sure the business had money to keep going. And that was my first exposure to all of that, standing behind the counter of the off license, doing reports in Excel in my spare time. And that's when I started to become more interested in how systems worked and how different bits of technology worked. During my time there, while between different customers coming in, I would look up different courses online, try and learn how to use computers a bit more. I knew that it wasn't exactly lighting me up standing behind the app license serving different people that were coming in. So I was spending my time online looking into different computer programs, or how you can actually get into writing code and using computers to make your life easier or to improve business processes, etc. After working in the off license in John Square for around 12 months, I got an opportunity to join the Commission for Communications Regulation, a public service role where we regulated the telecommunications industry. It was a bit closer to what I was hoping to do with working with some kind of technology or computer systems, but I still had the urge to improve my skill set and learn more things to do with computers and how I could use them. And I was quite interested at that point in how you could just create something and get so much value from it. You could write one little line of code and it could be unbelievably powerful and save you do things that you couldn't even do with all the time in the world, just with these little bits of information that you could actually put into the computer. While working for Comreg, I enrolled in an app development course. It was in the Limerick College of Further Education. I would have went there on a Wednesday afternoon after my shift at Comreg. Did that for around 3 or 4 hours every Wednesday, and it was a decent course. I enjoyed it. It wasn't exactly the perfect fit for me. It was very back-end focused, where you were just writing code. It was very clear that you wouldn't really be dealing with people, and it wasn't 100% for me, even though I finished it and I quite enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the problem-solving aspect of it. So being able to go into the technical back end of an application and just see how it actually worked, how it was all structured, how it was put together. I found that very, very interesting, and it was something that I really, really enjoyed. But again, it wasn't the actual fit for me. It didn't really light me up in the way that I would have pursued it full time. After working in Comreg, I returned to the University of Limerick. I studied business analytics. It was 2020 during COVID times. Everything was shut down. I returned and studied online. I would have started my course from my grandmother's spare room, my office, so to speak, just a desk with a couple of screens and my laptop, and I would have studied there for the year of 2020. About 6 months before I finished my master's in UL, I was successful. I got a job in Dell Technologies as a data analyst, and obviously this was a huge pivot in my career and in my skill set as well. I had really picked up an understanding of how data can be used in a business during my studies at UL. It was very focused on how different businesses use data to make decisions, how the actual systems underneath them works, like databases and dashboards and putting together different visuals with data. So I had gotten my first role at Dell as a data analyst. It was on the major incident management team in the stability operations organization within Dell Technologies. My first day, I got in there, someone was going on paternity leave. I was handed a huge Excel sheet and I was then the analyst for the major incident management team. So from there, I was on the internal store within Dell. I said to my manager, we've got the Excel sheet. It's got a lot of formulas in it. It's quite hard to maintain and keep going. I went down to the Dell internal store. I could see that Power BI was there. And I just said to him, I can see Power BI is on the internal store. Will I download it? And will I have play around with the Excel sheet that we've got? I think it could be a big value add. He said to me, of course, download it, have a look, put something together and we can review it. So that was my first venture into Power BI. I would have learned that as well through different courses on Udemy and looking up things online. There was no AI back then. It was just go on and learn everything through the browser and through different courses. So that's exactly what I did. I used the internal tools at Dell, put together the first Power BI dashboard to report on incident management. So incident management at Dell could be anything from Dell.com going down to someone has an issue with a phone line somewhere that's supporting an application or supporting a customer service line. And we analyzed the incidents there, the outages, the problems, anything that was coming from them, and we tried to get down to the root causes. And that's where I built my first Power BI dashboard, and I presented it back to my manager. The team started to actually use it. Then the leadership team of our major incident management team started to use it. And the project actually went the entire way to the VP of the Stability Operations organization. We did a presentation to him. He commissioned it as a full project. And I had my first Power BI implementation completely done. It was used widely across the teams. I actually won an award in Dell for it at the time as well. You can read about that on my LinkedIn. From there, I worked on a lot of other high-level projects at Dell. Dell was a fantastic place to work. I learned unbelievable things there, worked with unbelievable people, and it was really a formative part of my career in terms of how I learned how large Fortune 500 companies make decisions completely based on data. Everything was streamlined. There was no manual reporting. It was all very high-level stuff. And it was during this time that it kind of occurred to me that I was solving the problems that I had experienced in the off license a couple of years earlier, but I was just solving them for a company that was huge with massive resources, Fortune 500 company, best in-house tech, best in-house skills, best in-house resources. But it was the same problems. They were just in a different industry and in a different size of a company. So I continued working with Dell. Then one evening, sitting at home in my grandmother's house, I can still remember sitting in the room watching TV. I was probably watching a Premier League match on the TV. And my dad rang me. So he called me. He said, "Cian, we're coming up to Christmas in the off license. We've got issues with our ordering. We just need to be on the ball this year. We can't have a repeat of last year." And it's just the way that small businesses work. Margins are tight. People need to be on the ball. People need to be on top of everything that they're doing. He knew that I had been working with different databases and working with computer systems at Dell. And it just seemed like the right fit for me to come in and help. I had exactly the skill set that I could use. And that's how I started actually working external again to my corporate role. On the weekends, I used to go to the petrol station, go into the back room, try and pull the data out of the computer systems. In the evenings as well, I would spend time on my laptop and put together reports. And I built the first solution that I would actually bring to market there. So it was a Power BI reporting suite specifically for small business, for retailers, for anyone that was dealing with a lot of stock coming in and out, analyzing different trends in terms of transactions over time. And the output was absolutely brilliant. It was a single source of truth. There was no more trying to line up Excel sheets. There was no more exporting from different systems. Everything was streamlined. You could access it on your mobile or your desktop, get an overview of everything that was going on. The ordering accuracy increased by about 80%. There was no more walking around to the shelves and saying, is this here, is that there? Everything was just actually in fact-based reports that were there. You could export from the Power BI system and you could upload it into the Till backend system. There was no more manual, there was no more paper sheets, anything at all like that. They were able to adjust the opening hours of the stores so that there was no one on in the mornings when the place wasn't busy, and that they would have enough staff to deal with anything that was going on in the evening times as well. So that was a huge success. The Christmas period, which was the period that was concerning my dad, was a massive success. A lot of stress taken out of the running of a business. And that's when I truly realized that smaller companies like SMEs and directors at maybe companies from 11 to 50 to 100 people really needed what I was actually doing at Dell as well. And that I was in a position now where I could provide it for them. And I could work closely with business owners and people who were making decisions in smaller companies. And that was something that really interested me, rather than putting together reports for very large organizations where you're not really as involved in the decision making. You're part of the machine that does it, but you're not really involved in the actual decision making. So that was what I did. I ended up leaving Dell Technologies in November 22. And that is when I really started to put together the system that we use today at McCarty Analytics. And that's when I started formalizing the work that I was doing as a system. No more one-off projects, an actual method that we could use, and it's called the Data Clarity System. So the data clarity system is a methodology that I have developed over my time working on 30 plus different custom Power BI dashboard builds. It involves 4 different steps. The first one would be to audit the internal data, discuss with stakeholders what information they have, what information they need, what's available, and what we can actually do with it. The second step is to do with the actual underlying structure that is there for the data. Do we need to create new sources? Do we need to put it into a cleaner format? Is it a case that you have too much information and you need to consolidate it all in one server? If so, you can use a pipeline to actually do that, or you can just move it into different sources that are easier to connect together. Once that is done, you can go ahead and move into a design phase where you're putting together the actual view that you're going to use. Make sure that the questions you had in the beginning of the project were actually answered by the data that you have. Put together everything that will answer the questions for you, and the fourth step is always going to be the implementation. So that will be having your weekly or monthly reviews using the tool that we've actually built for you. There won't be any results if you don't actually implement the tool and be involved in it when it's delivered. And the benefits to implementing the data clarity system are endless. There's no more guesswork. There's no more different versions of the truth. There's one place that everyone goes during meetings that they can actually read from and make decisions backed by data instead of guesswork. Leadership have more confidence. Everyone is on the same page about what's going on in the actual business, and you can really become a data-driven organization rather than just another team making guesswork or making intuition-based decisions. This is an overview of how and why I built the data clarity system. If you want more information on it, you can go to the link in the comments below, or you can contact me directly. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you soon.